90% of every known illness is a result of human misbehavior. Only 2.7% of Americans have the best basic essential health habits. 22% of Americans still smoke. 67% of Americans are overweight or obese. Now, the average American eats 2.2 servings of fruits or vegetables in a day, when the recommended minimum is 5. Now, between our diet, our exercise habits, our work habits, our sleep habits, well, guess what? You've got about 2.7% of healthy Americans out there. I'm Jim Masters, CUTV News. Dr. Norm Shealy is the world's leading expert in natural chronic pain relief solutions and the first physician to specialize in the resolution of chronic pain. A holistic approach to pain has been his focus for many, many years, and he has treated well over 30,000 people who've been failed by conventional medicine. A pioneer in developing safe and effective treatments for chronic pain, Dr. Shealy is considered the father of modern pain medicine. He's the inventor of both spinal cord stimulation and the TENS unit, both of which revolutionized the treatment of pain and remain the standard for managing chronic pain worldwide. Before spinal cord stimulation, neurosurgeons would cut the spinal cord with a razor blade. It was barbaric, according to Dr. Shealy. After he introduced the spinal cord stimulator, every neurosurgeon wanted to do the procedure. That was the beginning of what got him into pain. In 1971, Dr. Shealy started the first holistic clinic in the world. In 1974, he established the Shealy Wellness Center to complement his frequent lectures on alternative pain treatments. In 1978, he founded the American Holistic Medical Association. Now, according to Dr. Shealy, a neurosurgeon by training, conventional medicine excels in acute illness and emergency medicine, but its approaches to chronic diseases remain woefully inadequate. Dr. Shealy says he has always taken a more common sense, humane approach to medicine. He's published 35 books, including his latest book, Conversations with G, a physician's encounter with heaven. Dr. Shealy has also published more than 300 articles, and he still sees patients on Mondays and Tuesdays and sometimes Fridays. Most of Dr. Shealy's patients suffer from chronic pain, depression, and anxiety. His success rate is 85%, which means patients have markedly improved or no longer require drugs. It's an honor and a pleasure to welcome Dr. Norm Shealy to the CUTV News studio today to discuss his life's work, his mission, and much more. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you here.
Mutual. Thank you, Jim.
So let's talk about health, and those statistics in the beginning are frightening. Only 2.7% of Americans who are actually healthy out there. That is scary.
And that is the reason the average life expectancy in this country is 79 instead of 100 today.
Really?
If people just adopted these habits within 25 years, average life would be 100 years.
So what are we doing wrong? Is it our culture? Is it our lifestyle? Is it technology? Is it just all the fast-paced movement in this country? What do you feel is happening?
Well, it's junk food.
Yeah.
80% of the food sold in the country is junk. 45% is consumed at fast food restaurants. I went to McDonald's in 1962. I took one bite. As politely as I could, I spit it out, threw it away, and I've never been back, and I will never eat at such a restaurant again.
Yeah, it's just not the good stuff.
No.
Absolutely.
Fast food to me is a piece of fruit and some nuts.
That's well. Let's go back in time a little bit here. You grew up on a farm in South Carolina. Was that the beginnings for you when you realized, there was organic and there was healthy? And what spurred your interest and your passion for leading into the work that you do today?
Well, my mother was an organic gardener. And I took over the family vegetable garden when I was 12. So it was a family thing.
So then from there, did you say, I want to pursue this from a medical standpoint? Tell us through the process, how you got from point A to point B.
Well, actually, at age 4, I knew I wanted to be a physician. And when I finished high school at age 16, I knew I wanted to be a neurosurgeon because I really wanted to understand the brain.
Yes, yeah.
So I went to college and then at medical school at 19, and by the time I finished, I recognized already that drugs were not something I could approve of except in acute illnesses. In fact, when I was interning, I saw one of the greatest complications I've ever seen of cortisone. A young man who'd been on it for several years came in dying of abscesses with staphylococcus and fungi all over his body from taking cortisone. Not something I could recommend.
So what happened from there?
Well, during my neurosurgical residency, then I began to see how appalling it was. I mean, take a piece of a razor blade to cut the spinal cord. So I spent 3 years doing research in pain physiology. And interestingly, when I presented just the physiology in animal study, the neurosurgeon said, "Oh, we don't know, you don't know what you're talking about." A few years later, when I presented just 6 cases, every neurosurgeon in the room was ready to do it. I often say surgeons rush in where angels fear to tread. And yet, it is a good procedure. But the vast majority of patients who were candidates for it had been butchered with 5 to 7 unsuccessful back operations. Jim, you know, if the first marriage doesn't work, the second one actually isn't quite as likely to work either. Well, with back surgery, it's even worse.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So after I began receiving hundreds of patients a year sent to me for the spinal cord stimulator, I found only 6% that I thought were good enough to just do the surgery. Somebody had to find out what to do. So that's when I started looking at behavioral modification. How do you change people's behavior? So for the first year, we really just did a basic, what I call positive behavior modification program, 1 month in the hospital. Success rate was 75%. I mean, these are people who failed everything before that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then I learned about biofeedback and autogenic training. I was already doing acupuncture, and that was the beginning of really the broader approach from a holistic point of view. To me, the thing that's been missing from medicine for 300 years is the spirit, the soul. And so that's why I founded the American Osteopath Association, to put the soul back into medicine.
So was it that through your efforts and everything that you were doing prior, you just saw the soul and the spirit missing in modern medicine today?
Exactly.
It was more assembly line, just get it in, get out, and get it done and move on?
Brain manipulation, if you will, by what I call the pharmacomafia.
Are we living in a overprescribed society?
Yes, I would say 90% of all prescribed drugs should not be used.
Now, even yourself, you don't take really anything either.
No. And if I had a chronic disease, I would not take any drug that I know of.
And the reason for that would be?
They don't work well.
Yeah.
The most common prescribed drugs, of course today, almost narcotics, which are never indicated beyond a month unless you're dying of cancer.
Statins, big.
Statins, I've said for 40 years, well, however long it's been around, I'd bite your hand off if you try to give me one.
Yeah. People taking them for cholesterol and a lot of other things.
There's so much easier ways to control cholesterol and safe.
Is it because there are side effects? Is there things that are happening that are just not good?
Side effects of statin drugs, first of all, they long-term damage your brain. Secondly, they damage the muscles, especially in your legs, and then every organ in your body, practically. They're poison. You couldn't pay me to take a statin drug as an experiment.
So way back in the 70s, you really started to go headfirst into the holistic world and created, again, the clinics and so much more. How do you describe holistic medicine for somebody who's watching this right now who's not familiar with what it is? They've heard that word, maybe they've read a little bit here and there, but they're not too sure of the advantage, benefit, and what it's all about.
What it's all about is safety. In other words, any treatment that I offer, I have to know beyond any reasonable doubt is safe. Now, actually, I began doing acupuncture back in the mid-50s. It made sense to me. I'm the one who created the idea of electroacupuncture. Instead of twirling the needles, I hooked an electrical stimulator to it. I'm something of an electrical junkie. I've specialized in developing electrical gadgets and devices which can help heal.
Well, you said even back in your early years you were a nerd.
Well,
You
that's
actually
right.
really took to all of this, right?
Well, yeah, to me, learning and studying were always my most favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And I still spend, I would say, a minimum of 3 hours a week searching, research and that kind of thing, just the literature.
Your goal with all of this is to help people, to make their lives better.
Exactly. There's only one purpose in life,
Yeah,
to help people.
to help people. So you created the clinic back in the 70s, and what was that process like? Take us through that if you can a little bit.
Well, I'll remember so well. I was teaching up at the University of Minnesota, and I said to my neurosurgical colleague, you know, pain's the most common symptom that takes someone to a physician. No one specializes in it. And Todd Long said, what an interesting idea, but who would ruin his career doing that? I like challenges like that. So I ruined my career doing that, and I love it.
And then where did you go from there? What was the process from there? Because you didn't stop. Once you got into this, you were really steaming along, as you still are.
I think the thing that really sped it up, in 1972, I learned about autogenic training, which has been around since 1912 and fabulous. And I learned about biofeedback. It wasn't even published yet at that time. But the most important is I had my own personal first past life experience.
Really?
I saw myself as a physician in Egypt 3,000 years ago in a cholera epidemic.
Really? Now, when you first realized that and you were in tune with that, did that put fear into you? Were you puzzled by it? What was that initial reaction to that?
They made me more passionate than ever to be a good physician.
Really?
Yeah, that was it. Then that evening, I had my first out-of-body experience. I'm sitting up, standing, lying, whatever you do when you float up to the top of the room,
floating,
looking down at 200 people below me. And that was really the beginning. I've always had good intuition, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that was the beginning of my conversations with my angelic guides. Since that time, I actually have 5 patents that were given to me by my guides,
Really?
among other things. A lot of my research has been, well, the result of that.
That's amazing. So again, when you've tapped into this and realized this and discovered this, there was no hesitation at all? you felt blessed by it all?
Well, I felt blessed by my life. I've often said, I did not have the courage in this life to choose abusive parents.
Right.
I had wonderful, nurturing parents.
Yeah.
And so I was always encouraged.
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting too, I know in reading the material as a preparation for the interview, you've had, is it like 35 past lives or something around that?
That I know about.
Now explain, if somebody's watching right now and they're like, well, I don't understand this. What does he mean 35 past lives? How do you explain what that is and what that's about?
Well, I don't think there's any question whatsoever that our soul comes here to learn to grow towards being ever more perfect. And I know of lives going back 3,500 years. My immediate past life, I was a physician in England, John Elliotson. And that's been published and confirmed by the best intuitives in the world for this kind of thing. Interestingly, I introduced narcotics into England. This life I spend getting people off narcotics.
Wow.
That's karma.
That is, goes around, comes around. That is truly fascinating. That is, so how do you, again, for the folks watching, how do you realize these things? What happens? Do you wake up one day with a vision? Does something come in the mail? I mean, what happens to get you to realize these past lives and to know the kind of information that you end up knowing about something even like that?
Mostly it is spontaneous images that just, it's like a dream, but it's while I'm awake.
It's happening while you're awake.
Yes. And for instance, to me, perhaps one of my most famous, from my point of view, important past lives 30 some odd years ago, I saw myself in Assisi walking beside St. Francis. And to me, I know that I was there. Well, in 2006, I gave a lecture at the Integrative Medicine Congress in Canada. And when I finished, the reincarnated St. Francis came down because he recognized me from the audience. I mean, it was quite, with us hugging each other in tears. He has confirmed that I was indeed one of his companions. Meanwhile, I've met 3 others of what I call my brothers. 4 of us were close companions with St. Francis, and that's been confirmed by him. So, to me, it's just one thing after another that happens.
Has this knowledge enriched your life?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Now, Edgar Casey, who's one of my great heroes in the alternative world, said you never walk down the street and pass someone you haven't known in a previous life. I don't know yet what our previous lives together were, but I know we have to know one another.
Right, absolutely.
And even if it's someone you don't like, occasionally you meet, that to me is unfinished business from a previous life.
So do you feel all this knowledge of past lives has enriched your life?
Oh,
Doctor?
Absolutely. And I have to admit that I have 3 past lives that I know of in which I'm not what I would consider a nice person. I don't know how I could have ever been that kind of person, but
hard to believe.
Obviously, I mean, then I think, why on earth is St. Francis back? The greatest saint of all times, in my opinion. So he's back for service. So we come back to help. That's all.
That's incredible. Now let's talk about, again, the beginnings for you. Back in, was it 74, you created Shealy Wellness?
Yes.
What was that born out of? And tell us about some of the incredible work that happens
between
today.
71 and 74, I was on sort of the lecture circuit.
Yeah.
Anywhere from 60 to 120 days a year, I was talking. And people were, well, where do I get this? Where do I get that? And so I started this idea of having available the things that I thought were important. And that has grown since 74 into this, it's our mail order, if you will, availability. But it has not only things that are sometimes not easy to find, but the products that I consider most important for health.
And that would be?
At the top of my list, Jim, in today's world, is a good multivitamin. The world is so toxic because of the pollution. A couple of years ago, a 30-year-old man just finished his PhD. I'd known him since he was undergraduate. Came by to show me, congratulations, if you will. His fingers were raw. He had severe vitamin B deficiency. I said, Sean, do you take a multivitamin? Oh, no, we eat organic. I said, he was highly deficient in B1, B2, B3, B6. Took 6 weeks to get his fingers healed. And that's just the beginning. But in addition to that, of course, we've created things to help people control pain. TENS was the first big one of that. Now, I would say the cranial electrical stimulator, which I introduced back in 1975, the pulsed electromagnetic field device, which balances the electrical charge in every cell in your body, which is unbelievably good for diabetic neuropathy. And just in the last 2 weeks, we've learned that when you put it on the head, it increases gamma, the in the zone, the creativity, the most functional part of the brain.
Really?
And I don't know anything else that will help you go into gamma that well. And then, of course, I think in the long run, perhaps my most important ever invention is sapphire-enhanced scalar. Now, scalar energy is perhaps the most difficult in the world even to define. It's called zero-point energy. It moves many times the speed of light. And so I had an intuitive hit, as I do, about a year ago, that the reason the people in a southern town in Italy live the longest in anywhere in the world is that maybe the topography somehow creates scalar energy. So they found that these people averaging 95 healthy years had a marked low normal level of adrenomedullin, the most important hormone in the body for bringing stress down. And so I took 28 people and measured their adrenomedullin, and over a 1 month period had them spend just 36 hours, 9 hours a week for 4 weeks. The adrenomedullin came down 52%. Lowered blood sugar, made them sleep better, that kind of thing. Then we went back just a month ago and brought 10 of them back and looked at their blood under the microscope live. Now, when you do that, you see all kinds of abnormalities in inflammatory markers. 80% reduction in inflammation within 20 minutes of exposure to sapphire enhanced scalar energy. 40+% reduction in free radical production. And so I could say now that truthfully, I think the sapphire enhanced scalar by itself could probably be the single greatest stress reducer ever invented. And over the next year, we're going to demonstrate, I believe, and that's my intuition now, that it will prolong our life by increasing or regrowing your telomeres.
So what's going to happen with it? Is this going to be something that's going to be available everywhere? Or do you have to go to Shealy Wellness for this? Or,
no.
Because I think you're going to have lines out the door for this one.
It doesn't even have to have a prescription.
Really?
No. It's just an energy device. And it's going to be about the size of, a big piece of paper. Put it in your bedroom. Spend preferably 8 hours, at least 7 hours every night, sleeping with it on the whole body.
So it'll be like a consumer product you'll be able to order, buy, have shipped, and it's in your house.
Yes. And I've already been sleeping with it for the last month.
Have you really? That's why you're glowing.
And I sleep well, always.
Yeah.
But it does enhance the depth of sleep.
Is it at all similar to, they came out with those ionizer machines that
well,
sort of...
yeah, I would say this is several generations beyond ion.
Those machines.
Yeah.
What is it about sapphire? I know right now you're actually wearing a pouch in the area of your heart. I think maybe you can lift that up a little bit and we'll show the audience. Now, it's a little bit of a pouch. It's a nice little leather-looking pouch, but inside that pouch, you have crushed sapphire. So what is it about sapphire that has these incredible properties?
Well, going back to my guide told me if you would put crushed sapphire over the heart, it will bypass the need for bypass surgery. So 2 years ago, my wonderful brother, colleague, Sergei Sorin, and I measured out the calcium in our coronary arteries. He was 40 at the time. His was 97, which is very low. Mine was 2,000, but that's twice his age. And we just started this. In 1 year, his came down to 1, and mine came down 200 points.
By wearing that?
By just wearing this. I have no symptoms anyway, but it's actually cleaning out my arteries.
Now, is that something that's available to people?
It's on my website.
On the website as well?
Yeah.
That's incredible. So when you look at this body of work, Doctor, for all of these years, these incredible, miraculous inventions that have helped millions and millions of people, and you're still devising things. Like you say, you've got patents, you've written 35 books, many more books to come. When you look back at all of this, what is the first thing that comes to mind for you?
I'm fulfilling the life purpose, helping people. That's it.
What's the feedback you've had from people over the years to all of these things, how you've enhanced their lives for the better?
Even back before I went out on a twig,
right?
One of the last surgeries I did before I converted was a 12-year-old child who had a benign brain tumor, but his parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. They wouldn't allow blood. So we had an agreement that I would stop the operation if I lost too much blood. Well, I was able to get the tumor out without blood. And 20 years later, he called to thank me. I mean, you know, that's...
Those are,
I mean, so again...
touching,
Back to the time when I was an active neurosurgeon, one of my early operations, just before I retired also, was a 30-some-odd-year-old man with a ruptured aneurysm in his right brain. Coma. I go in, I take out the blood clot, I clip the aneurysm. The next morning when I went in the hospital, he was walking down the hall. So conventional medicine often for acute things is fabulous that way.
And that's one of the things that I know you stress and you want to emphasize is the fact that you're not saying conventional medicine has no use or no purpose. It does have a purpose and an important use. However, introducing elements of holistic medicine into your lifestyle is essential.
Absolutely. This second, but beyond my electrical gadgets, if you will, when I went back to get my PhD in psychology, I wanted to learn more about self-control, self-regulation. And that's when I developed what I call Biogenics. Biogenics is a system for retraining the brain. It teaches people how to detach. It teaches people how to balance the sensations coming up. In fact, in 1976, I came back from the Philippines with a sinus infection, the only time in my life. Finally had to have surgery for it, through the nose, the sphenoid sinus. And I said to the anesthesiologist, give me 20 minutes and I'll be ready. So I used my Biogenics exercise of imagining numbing this part of my head. After 20 minutes, I said, okay, go ahead. Now, they went up through the nose. I could hear the crunching of bone, no pain. That's how well you can train yourself to gain control over things. Now, you wouldn't do that where you need something else, but as an adjunct, when you know what you're doing and why, you can learn to control pain. You can make your hand numb mentally. Once you learn to make your hand numb, you can get rid of pain that has no other treatment, that kind of thing.
So it's fascinating. Let's talk a little bit more about the Biogenics. What are some other applications? And it's fascinating.
Well, anxiety, of course, and depression, of course, because that's what it's all about, is detaching from those things you do not and cannot change.
Because you mentioned to me when we were having dinner the other night, preparation for our interview, you listed out a couple of the big ones. I think anxiety, depression, there was 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Say that for us again.
Everything is a result of fear. Fear makes you anxious. It can make you depressed if you think it's bigger than you can handle. It can make you guilty sometimes because you feel as if you've done something. But it can make you angry as stink. And, you know, if you can change it, it's okay to be angry. You know, if you can stop something from happening. But if you can't, there's only one thing, detach.
Now, as a neurosurgeon, again, another thing that you and I had chatted about earlier before we went into the studio here was detaching. The ability to detach. A lot of people don't have or don't think they have the ability to detach from things that they really should detach. Not that it shows lack of empathy, but for your own salvation and your own safety to be able to detach. So here you are, a noted neurosurgeon for many, many, many years and doing incredible things on a regular basis, but at the same time having seen some of the most unbelievable things that can happen to an individual in life. How were you able, Doctor, to reach that level of detachment?
As a trainee, if you will, in neurosurgery, you begin to see these unbelievably horrible things, and you can't allow yourself to collapse. I mean, empathy, you know, desire to help, but you have to be detached enough not to goof up. And so I think I can say I truly began the idea of detachment. Now, I never learned to do it with children. I could never have been a pediatric neurosurgeon. I had my own kids, and I found, children with these horrible things much more difficult for me.
Yeah.
But for adults, I learned to begin the idea of not, getting emotionally upset because I couldn't function as well. And actually, in the operating room, I am totally detached and focused on what I'm doing, for instance. And so I learned that. But then, as I began to work with people with these more chronic things, it's the same kind of thing. They begin telling their stories, and they're horrendous stories, 20 and 30 years sometimes. And that's when I began to recognize the need for training people to be able to relax, get away from the pain, mental or physical, and then to change that. So I developed a wide variety of techniques. But then you have to go back and learn to control the emotional stuff. So there's physical, if you will, balancing, and then there's emotional balancing. So we created a number of exercises of experience. My favorite is one I call the Zen exercise. I have people get relaxed, and then I have them recall the most painful event of their life, physically or emotionally, and then get rid of it. And then the second most painful, and get rid of it. And the third most painful, and then I have them scream aloud. It's great in a group. Pain, pain, pain. And be aware of what's happening in their body as they do that. Then as they once again get rid of the pain and the reaction to it, then I have them focus on the most loving, pleasant, happy experience throughout life.
Dr. Shealy, we have a wealth of material here, some of which we touched upon during the course of the interview. What do we have here? What is this?
These are the 5 bliss oils. Now, I call this bliss because this was the first one that I created. This is the one that raises oxytocin. And oxytocin truly is the nurturing, but it's also the hormone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is what I call transcutaneous acupuncture. There are 12 specific acupuncture points for the Ring of Fire, but 13 for each of the others. So if this was an acupuncture point, you would push it down, twist it, and move on to the next point. So that applying this to the body, once you've learned the points, takes 30 seconds. You can do all 5 of them in 2.5 minutes.
Really?
Now, this one raises oxytocin, and it's the one that's needed by the vast majority of people. Fire raises DHEA, but also phenomenally good for migraine, for diabetic neuropathy, for back pain, and depression.
Wow.
This one also works in 80% of people with depression.
That's incredible. And the same application?
At different spots.
Different trigger
same kind
points.
of application. Water normalizes aldosterone, which is the hormone from the adrenal glands that balances water metabolism. This is good primarily for helping overall emotions, but primarily congestion or edema, swelling. Earth raises calcitonin to keep your bones strong, but also a great pain reliever, 40 to 50 times as strong as morphine.
Wow.
And crystal lowers free radicals. The free radicals are what I say ultimately kill us.
Yeah.
They age us, they damage us.
So often.
This reduces free radicals 80%. Now, if you do fire, earth, and crystal, it regrows or regenerates your telomeres 3.5% a year instead of the usual 1% shrinkage every year.
And what does that mean? How do we benefit from that?
Telomeres are the tips of your DNA. They are absolutely crucial for your being able to keep reproducing cells. Every 7 years max, every cell in your body is reproduced. When you get to the point where the telomeres are worn out, so to speak, you begin aging rapidly and die.
Yeah.
So my telomeres are 35 years younger than I am physically because I've been doing this for 10 years.
That's these 3?
These 3.
I'll be with you in a minute.
They're yours if you want
The
them.
magic. Red, green, and blue. Wow. Incredible. That's amazing. So how long did it take you to devise these? And I'm sure it's gone through testing and all kinds
Well,
of
the
things.
testing, of course, took
Years, huh?
weeks.
Yeah.
But because it's blood tests, it's so
Yeah, right.
But the devising of them, each of them was a download, what I call a download.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
Really?
I write it down, mix these, and then I test them.
So not years and years? It didn't have to require years and years. You really...
This is what I call a download from my guide.
That's amazing.
Every one of them.
All of this all tied together. Now, what do we have here? This is kind of cool. It looks like, a water bottle type of contraption. What is this
actually
about?
a blender bottle.
A blender bottle.
And this is what I have for breakfast every day with the added whey protein and a mixture of 6,000, that's equal to 6 big servings of fruits and vegetables of ORAC units, 1 scoop, some apple juice or some water, shake it up and drink it. That holds me all morning at least.
So this is actually your own concoction. I see something in there. And what do? You pour it all in and
shake
you
it.
just go like this?
Exactly.
Really?
And I could travel with it.
Quick, convenient, easy?
Yeah.
Nothing has to be plugged in?
No.
Wow. And it's all from what's in there?
Exactly. Well, and the powder.
The powder that you do, right. That's fantastic. So this is something that you've developed?
Yes, and we're about to
You've
put it on
created?
the market with the food supplement. It's a concentrated food supplement.
That is amazing.
To me, this is one of the best meals in the day. And most people would do well to start with this in the morning. One of the greatest mistakes you can have is not eating breakfast.
Yeah.
This is a 2-minute production to get your breakfast.
You have the same thing every day?
I do.
You do? Same
Yeah.
thing every day. Wow. Now, do you have one a day and that's it?
That's it.
Nothing later or at night or nothing?
No,
Just one of
once a
those a
day.
day. And you're good for several hours. You're full,
Absolutely
energy.
comfortable.
Good. Wow, that's amazing. Now, what do we have here?
This long term,
looks like sand art.
this is sapphire enhanced. That's the stuff you see in front of the yellow. Sapphire enhanced scalar energy.
So this is what you were talking about.
Yes.
That has
This
these incredible properties.
Reduces adrenomedullin, reduces free radicals, markedly reduces inflammation in the blood, and I believe over the next year we'll prove that it also regenerates telomeres, but that's going to take me another year. That kind of thing does take time.
Now, is this the thing we were talking about in the interview that has the capacity, the potential of extending lives?
Exactly. I believe that average life with good health habits could be somewhere between 120 and 160 years of age.
Really?
But you would need this in addition to good habits.
So this is something people would have at home. They plug it in. We see a little red light blinking. What's that doing?
They just tell you it's working, so you don't have to worry about is it putting out anything.
Is it left plugged in all day or
Yes,
for an hour or two?
It does seem to condition the space.
It does.
So I think it's ideal in the bedroom so that you're getting 7 or 8 hours a night.
All at once while you're sleeping?
Yes.
That is really, really amazing. So that's revolutionary. And is that something that's available now?
Just available.
Just off the market.
Yeah, it'll be coming out as one of my e-newsletters next week.
So this is brand new. This is coming. The book, Conversations with G, hot off the presses. And then we have this. Been wondering what this is all day.
This is the chakra sweep.
The chakra sweep, okay.
Because it covers the frequencies, the 1st to the 7th chakra.
All right.
7.83 to 7 times 0.7.83.
And a chakra, for people watching who are not familiar with a chakra, what that is.
Energy centers of the body.
Okay.
And these are both neurologic. They have certain concentration of nerve energy, but also they're metaphysical connections between the etheric soul and the body. And now, just within the last week, we have discovered that if you put this on your head...
Put this on the head, okay. Now, this just goes on the head, or could you put it in other areas too?
Yeah, that's
feed.
Well, you could put it. I've got a friend who's postponed and come out, instead of having shoulder surgery, it's being controlled with this.
Really?
You can put it anywhere. It'll increase the circulation of the heart.
Yeah.
You can put it around your legs for diabetic neuropathy, for which is absolutely fabulous. Or you can put it on your head and sit at your computer and work with it, and it markedly increases gamma activity, the frequency of the brain that leads to creativity and feelings of, I'm in the zone.
So between this and this,
Yes.
and an hour or 2 or 3 of that, starting out with this,
Optimal.
and reading these,
Optimal health
that's amazing.
and well-being.
So what's actually happening right now with this, we have it plugged in. I would have this on my head for basically how long?
A minimum of 30 minutes.
So about 30 minutes, okay.
Yeah. I don't think I'd go ordinarily beyond an hour. Don't need it.
Now, I don't feel any currents or anything, is
No.
it? It's just
just
doing
the
its own
frequencies.
thing. And the result of it, like you said, are there other benefits from having this, using this, whether it's
Increase-
here, feet, anywhere?
Well, health, local pain relief. It's
So
excellent
it
for
does
that.
local pain relief.
But for the brain, creativity, intelligence, and the most important, just feeling great.
I think we'll get one for every staff member here. Creativity, intelligence, it's what you need working in this industry.
Indeed.
That's incredible, really. So again, it also helps with circulation.
Absolutely. In fact, if you put it on your chest, the temperature increases 6 degrees in the chest wall.
Really?
Yeah.
That is amazing. Doctor, these things are absolutely revolutionary. They really, really are. What has been the feedback with all of this? I mean,
I would say
I'm sure it's tremendous.
positive.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are still coming out, but of all the things that you've developed, in all the years, these are practical things that you don't necessarily have to go somewhere and spend 3 hours there.
Exactly.
These are things that can be done at home on a regular basis.
Every day,
That
in
is-
every way, I'm getting better and better.
That's incredible. And I'm sure you have many more things that you're developing. 35 books.
36
all of this-
coming.
36 coming, so a lot more. Well, this is absolutely incredible. Earlier you mentioned Biogenics, and we talked in depth about that. I know you've been working on a lot of different programs, and you're working on a program with the folks in Connecticut at the Graduate Institute. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we met with them a couple of weeks ago, and we're actually going to develop a program for teaching primarily nurses, counselors, psychologists to use this for health enhancement, biogenics. So we're going to train instructors in doing this with clients and patients. And that will be through a program at the Graduate Institute.
That's terrific. Always working on something new and exciting, Doctor.
Hey, never a dull moment.
Absolutely. Doctor, let's talk more about biogenics. If you can describe it a little bit more and some of the applications.
Yes. In 1974, I actually went back to get my PhD in psychology to understand self-control, self-regulation. When I finished my dissertation, which was the development of biogenics, after I passed the exam, I handed him a copy of 90 Days to Self-Health, which has just been published for the public because...
This book here.
Yes.
Now, there's a history to this. This was one of your first books?
This was one of my first in 1977, sold 130,000 copies, and it is the history of biogenics. Biogenics is a look at controlling, training the entire nervous system and body. So you learn to be in present time. Most people spend a lot of time in the past.
Yeah.
Not too much in the future. You learn relaxation, which is key, but there are dozens of techniques for that. Then to me, you learn to control I call it sensory biofeedback. The feedback. You can go from feeling your right ear to your left little toe, like that. Now, if you are blocked in a part of the body for whatever psychological reason, the blood flow is decreased, muscle tension occurs, pain occurs. And so you need to learn to have total control over what's happening in the feelings inside your body. Now, that's what biogenics teaches you. These techniques include breathing through the skin, which can, if you do it long enough, can make it numb, great pain relief. circulating the electrical energy around the body to make it go smoothly. An American Indian technique called collect and release, where you start at the feet, breathe in and collect all sensation and blow it away. And then, my favorite of all, expanding the electromagnetic energy field around your body. That's the human aura. Mm-hmm. And when you put your body in a 1-inch and then 12-inch halo of electromagnetic energy, the body feels gone, but your mind is brilliantly alert, and you can travel in space and time.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
And I mean, that's when I created myself back in 1972. And then you need to learn to control your hang-ups, your anger, guilt, anxiety, depression, over anything. I've got a dozen exercises for emotional balance. And my favorite is the one where I have people remember and then recreate the most painful thing in life. And then let it go. It wasn't there. The second most painful, the third most painful, and then I have them scream aloud, pain, pain, pain. And most people begin to laugh a little bit at that point if I'm doing it in a group. And then you create the most loving, peaceful, happy experience of life. And you wind up by saying, I know at my innermost being I am magnificent, wise, and loving. You create the feeling of love throughout the body. Mm-hmm. Very healing.
I would imagine, absolutely.
And only when you've learned to balance the pain, release it, balance the emotions, are you ready for true meditation, which is connection with God, soul, or the divine.
So how does one know when they are ready? Does something happen to trigger this?
There's a feeling.
There's a feeling,
yeah. It takes about 3 months of daily practice to be ready, in my opinion. That you aren't going to be distracted by what I call unfinished business.
Right.
And once you do that, then you can truly be with your true self, which is the soul.
Your authentic self. List those out again. You said anger, anxiety, depression.
Guilt.
And
those
guilt.
4. Those are the 4. The synonyms for those, but those are it.
Those are the ones. In the society today, there seems to be a lot of all of the above.
Yes.
Running rampant. So applying that to the now.
What I say is you cannot afford the luxury of anger, guilt, anxiety, or depression because it will kill you. Hans Eysenck, the greatest psychiatrist of the last century, in my opinion, demonstrated that people who die of cancer have a lifelong personality trait, 75% of the time, of unfulfilled depression. 15% anger, 9% both.
Unfulfilled depression.
In other words, they wanted something from mommy or someone that they couldn't get.
They didn't get the love that they thought they were going to get.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Or there was favoritism or what have you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that stays with them forever.
75% of people who died of a heart attack had lifelong anger. 15% depression, 9% both. So 99.2 actually percent of people who die of cancer or heart disease early have either unfinished, if you will, anger, guilt, anger or anxiety, or both.
So all of these things play off each other, and they complement each other and can kill you.
Yes.
Now, we talked in the beginning of the interview segment about 10% possibly being genetic.
Yes.
The other 90, bad habits. Tell us about that, because a lot of people probably think that the genetic portion would be significantly higher, and they would say, oh, well, I'm not going to make modifications, I'm not going to make lifestyle changes because my uncle, my grandfather, father, mother had this, so I'm destined anyway, so I might as well smoke, eat, drink, do whatever.
Well, we now know there's something called epigenetics over the last 15 or 20 years Epigenetics means that the genes are dormant, and if you do the right habits, they don't manifest. So the vast majority of the genetic predispositions, such as heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, are epigenetic genes. So if you have good health habits, they don't manifest. That's why. And I'm not the one who created that statement about 95% of people are born healthy and become unhealthy because of human misbehavior. That was someone back in the 1970s, John Knowles.
That's incredible. So what do we do? How do we, somebody's watching right now and they're like, okay, well, what do I do, doctor? How do I make these changes? I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. Of course, we know 95% of diets fail.
Let me give you my favorite patient history. In 1974, April 30th, a woman was flown to me by air ambulance, dying, according to her oncologist, of metastatic breast cancer. And she came for pain control. And she kept saying, I didn't come here to be brainwashed. I came here to get rid of my pain. I said, shut up and listen. I'm teaching you how to get rid of your pain. On the 17th day, I did a 20-minute exercise on forgiveness for the group of 50 patients. This woman was brought in the room in a wheelchair, maybe, got up and walked out of the room free of pain for the first time. 3 months later, her cancer was gone, never to return. A year and a half later, I'm invited to speak in Los Angeles at the hospital where she'd been unsuccessfully treated with radiation chemotherapy. She picks me up at the airport, and we're driving down there. She says, Norm, I want to tell you what happened. Last year, during that exercise, I suddenly realized how much I hated my family, and I decided I'm not going to let the bastards kill me. It's not what I call perfect insight, but it worked for her. She said, when I came home, she flew home on a commercial plane. I got off the plane. I said to my husband, I'm getting well. He said, but you've got cancer. You're going to die. She said, I got well, and he committed suicide.
That's amazing. That really.
Yeah.
See, I tell you, when you really think about all of these stories, do they surprise you?
Not anymore.
They used to.
Yeah, yeah.
They
I mean,
used to, yeah.
You know, it's just fantastic to me what you can do.
So with all of these incredible things that you've been involved in all your life, from the age of 4, in reading the current book, Conversation with G, you also mentioned that, well, a lot of people have fear of death, whether it's a fear of how they're going to pass or the fact that they're going to pass, and loved ones and friends are going to pass as well. But you had this conversation with your grandmother, I think it was in the kitchen, and it was a pivotal point in your life when you realized that you developed this non-fear of death at age 4. How did that happen?
I came that way. I think it's karma, if you will, good karma. At any rate, I'm up on a lard can. They used to buy, you know, barrels of lard. And I'm watching my uncle outside make a snowman, and I want to be out there. My mom won't let her 4-year-old go out. And Grandma, Bud, be careful. You're going to hurt yourself. Grandma, don't worry. If you're going to die, you're going to die. Her response was, that may be true, son, but you can shorten your life. But I have never had a fear of death. It just, to me, is just another day in the life of a person.
Absolutely, absolutely. This book here, again, Conversations with G, what was your vision, your reason for writing this particular book? Now your 35th book, unbelievable.
I want people to know how good it can be to get in touch with yourself. Now, to me, myself is not this personality that somehow lives in here, but the soul. And I think that my connection with my angelic guides has given me that.
So the book takes us through step by step. Is it instruction? Is it
there's instruction
autobiographical?
It is very autobiographical. In fact, I have the most intense, in my opinion, analysis done by my angelic guide that I published there. I took notes. And I also have a section on how to contact your own guides.
Now it says a physician's encounter with heaven. Tell us about that.
Well, heaven is my guides. I have two guides. Actually, in 1984, I already was having a lot of intuitive hits. But in 1984, one night I woke up and was having conversations with 15 different angelic people, entities. And I'm trying to take notes, you know. Well, after that, I was able then to have conversations with my teacher guide, which I call G, or my personal angel, Muriel. Now, if you're a man, your personal companion angel is always of the opposite sex. If you're a woman, it's a man, etc. So Muriel and I have philosophical discussions, but G gives me inventions and philosophy.
Now, when somebody sees a conversation, or in this case, conversations with G, the first thought is the G would be God.
That is right. But actually, it was after my psychoanalysis by my guide, that was 1994 or 5, he said that I should write a book about it, and he called it Conversations with G, A Physician's Encounter with Heaven. So actually, it's been in the back burner for a long time.
So what do you hope people get out of the book? Take us through some of the chapters within the book where you take people through.
I think it will give them hope. You know, remember, I believe the number one human need is forgiveness.
Is that one of the hardest things to accomplish?
Forgive the bastards.
Yeah.
Number 2 is tolerance of other people's beliefs.
Yeah.
I don't care what you believe, as long as you don't try to force me. If you want to worship the floor, enjoy. Just don't make me lick it.
Right.
And number 3 is being at peace. Those are if you've got those, everything else then easily leads to love. And love is not liking, it is the desire to do good to others. That's the message of the book.
So of those things that you just mentioned, if you were to run percentages of how many people have achieved those to get to the point of love, would you say the percentages are low?
Low.
Tolerance and everything
Exactly.
else?
Yeah. The big 3 is those 3.
Peace, tolerance.
Yeah. You know, again, if you want to wear a burlap suit, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm being semi-facetious about that, but the point is not tolerating getting angry with somebody because they have a belief. How ridiculous! As if you know everything.
Are we experiencing that more now because we're living in an individualistic society where everybody is pulling apart versus coming together?
Yeah, I think political correctness is the biggest nonsense in history. You know, you should be able to tolerate people with different opinions.
Absolutely. So how do we get to that point? What are some of the things we do in addition to...
Practice. Biogenics, detachment, and this is one other thing we haven't talked about, which is perhaps worth mentioning. Every known disease is associated with low levels of serum oxytocin. Everything from ADHD, et cetera, right up through schizophrenia is associated with low levels of oxytocin. People didn't get enough nurturing in childhood for some reason. And so, actually, for those who have the greatest need, my discovery of transcutaneous acupuncture and air bliss, the one that raises oxytocin, may be more important even than those electrical devices that I talked about, because you gotta be willing to like yourself in order to like other people.
What about people with OCD and things of that nature?
Again, this is the same thing. They weren't
nurtured.
They weren't nurtured adequately. To me, one of the greatest tragedies in modern society is that 40% of children are born out of wedlock. It takes 2 parents to raise a child healthily. Now, it can be done, but it's a heck of a job and is not often successful if they're not nurturing parents.
What brings you the greatest joy on a daily basis when you look back of your incredible career and everything that you've done? Decades of work, constant accomplishment, success, but touching lives in a way that's beyond anything that you probably even would have dreamed when you were 4 in that kitchen with your grandmother.
It's helping people. At age 12, according to my guide, the healer archetype manifested itself in my father's store. This little black lady came in with I'm in a cast, no big deal. But I had this craving to jump over the counter and hug her.
It did.
And I've never lost that feeling of wanting to help people.
And you've helped many. It's something within. It's something that's...
Yes, it's a drive. But I point out again,
yeah,
the people who made this suit are just as important as I am, because I couldn't do that.
Right.
So if you
Everybody matters.
If you're doing something that helps other people,
yeah,
that's all it takes.
No greater gift.
Right.
And it's a gift that gets paid forward. It's inspiring. It's empowering.
And I think it goes through to your children, of course, and now to my grandchildren.
Yeah. Do you see it in them too?
Oh, absolutely.
In the kids and the grandkids?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids were raised with this.
Yeah.
Philosophy.
It's a wonderful philosophy to have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Doctor, this has been truly amazing, stimulating, thought-provoking, enriching, and I wish you continued success in everything you do, because obviously, I mean, you are touching lives and you're doing your life's purpose, you're living your life's purpose, you're doing what really is your calling, touching lives, making lives better, making the room better than you found it every day.
And so are you.
You know, I think
I'm
so.
serious.
I think so. Yeah.
That, you see,
passion for what I do, and
absolutely important.
yeah, communicating, sharing, helping others. It's a wonderful thing. But sometimes you go through life not realizing that you have the ability to tap into that for the greater good.
To enrich other people.
Well, bless you, sir.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Fine.
If you'd like to learn more about the incredible work of Dr. Norm Shealy, please visit his website, normshealy.com. For CUTV News, I'm Jim Masters.